Morning and welcome to the first solo podcast of 2022. This is The Guest List. I'm your host, Steve Guest, and really looking forward to spending some time with you today. I hope you've had a lovely Christmas, a really chilled, festive break, and you're all recharged, ready to go. You've had a great new year, and you've come back into work. For many of you, this will be your second week back, as it is for me. Been a bit of a roller coaster, if I'm honest. I've come back and it's extremely busy. The markets are really busy, which is great. For us as a family, Christmas was a very quiet affair. We had a COVID household, as I'm sure many of you out there listening to this probably did as well. So feeling fully refreshed, ready to go. Had lots of conversations this week, and this is going to be the topic of today's podcast. If you're listening to this and you are perhaps going for your morning run, commuting into work, listening while you're on the train, or your drive, and this may kind of resonate with you in terms of where your thought process is. Lots of conversations last week and this week about and with individuals that have come into the new year, like many of us do. And we sit there saying, this is my year. This is going to be a great year. I'm going to do much better than last year. I'm going to go after bigger targets. I'm going to improve. I'm going to do this, that, and the other, which is great because the intent is there to improve and be better and make this year better than the year before. The struggle many of us have is we don't necessarily understand, or we haven't reviewed how we're going to do it or how we're going to get there. And when we're challenged, quite often the responses range, I suppose, along the lines of, well, I'm just going to work harder. I'm going to work more hours. I'm going to make more calls, or I'm going to be more active. And whilst this all has an impact, quite often it doesn't necessarily correlate with the end target or result that we're really looking to achieve. And this is something I just want to start to, I suppose, get across and get you to consider your thought processes and what you've got in place. So, for example, if you're in recruitment, if you're in sales, and you achieved a certain target last year, let's say you achieved £150,000 in sales or in revenue or billings, and you know, because you've tracked your stats and your KPIs, you know how many calls you made last year, you know how many CVs you sent out, how many interviews you arranged, how many offers you got, and you know all these KPIs, but you haven't sat there and reviewed what it all means. The best way to look at it is if you made £150,000 of revenue and you did 100 calls a month, you know if you've got to hit £200,000 a year, what that equates to and how many more calls you're going to have to make to get there. And it's about making sure that the activity, the output, the targets, the impetus that you set is all aligned with the overall result and target that you're looking to achieve. Hopefully, just by saying that example, some of you are now starting to think about, okay, I do want to be better this year. How am I going to get there and what am I going to do? Once you start to build up that element of, this is what I did last year and I achieved this, so I'm going to try and get to this level this year, and this is what I've got to do to get there. Once you've got to that point, you can start assessing the bigger goal and then breaking it down into months, weeks, and days, which is something we've covered in previous podcasts. So I'm not going to go over that in too much detail today. But what we can also start doing, and something I like to do, is if you understand what your average results were. So that could be, what's your average weekly number of calls? What's your average number of weekly interviews? What's your average fee billing rate? What's your average result per week or per month? Once you know your averages, it sets a level or a bar that you can work to. So you can go into work this year knowing that whatever your averages were last year, make that the bottom level. So by that, I mean, you never go below what your average was last year. So if your average was 20 calls a day, for example, 20 calls a day becomes the minimum. So when you get to the end of this year, your average is obviously going to be better than last year. And you've made that incremental shift to improve your productivity and overall your general return. And this can be in all walks of life. It could be all areas in which you live your life. It doesn't necessarily just have to be the practicalities of what you do and what you work to on any given day. Start looking at everything that you do and start to implement those small little changes that mean that every single day that you're at work, every single day that you're at home and you're trying to find balance, that you are implementing changes that move you forward. This could be that you take half an hour lunch instead of an hour lunch. It could be that you come in a little bit earlier to get yourself set up, prepared, make sure you've got your coffee and you've had your breakfast ready to start the moment that you should be starting, as opposed to taking half an hour to an hour to get ready and you're already behind the competition. I look to improve every year, as some of you will know from knowing me and through listening to this podcast. So it's about going into the year knowing and quantifying how you're going to improve, how you can stay accountable, and what changes you can make to actually make you better this year than last year. Many of us know that we should be doing certain things, and our comfort zones keep us well protected, and we don't go out there and do it. There will be people listening to this that feel they should have done certain things last year and they didn't for whatever reason. Maybe it does really scare you or scare them. Maybe it's just the fact that it's not high on the priority list, but you know you've got to get it done. Make sure you start to implement things this year that keep you accountable. Get somebody to make you accountable. Put things out on social media that make your network keep you accountable. Ultimately, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And you've got to get outside that comfort zone. You've got to start to make positive change to actually improve and get closer to the bigger goals. You've got to do it. And I suppose the purposes of talking about this in the first solo podcast this year, it's because we're only 2 weeks into the new year. So there's still lots of time to change. There's still lots of time to assess last year and come in fighting this year, knowing that you're going to be bigger and better. By doing it, you create the energy, you create the momentum, and that level of urgency, but also the ability to know what you've got to do just helps to keep you motivated. The days where you come in and you're feeling like you've got a lack of focus, or it's the dark, cold mornings and you can't get moving, or you don't know how to make that first sales call. Quite often it's just about the fact that the bigger picture, the bigger goal, the whole year end achievement or target is far bigger than you feeling a little bit deflated on a Monday morning. And the ability to know where you're headed actually makes you pick up the phone and make that first call. So I suppose some of the key questions to think about from this podcast is, firstly, have you assessed last year? Do you know how you achieved what you achieved and what it took to get there? Have you really analysed all the elements of what you do on a daily basis to get to that point? If you're coming into this year and you've got new targets and they're bigger and better than last year, do you know how you're going to achieve them? Have you really challenged what you're going to do to get there? Or are you just saying, I'm going to be bigger and better this year and I'm going to hit bigger targets, but actually you've got no rhyme or reason as to how you're going to get there? If you're in that position, just start thinking and looking at the stats and the KPIs and the activities that back up your end result. Have you got things that are outside your comfort zone that you know you should be doing? Have you made a list of them? Are you going to do something each month this year that's going to scare you and put you in a position where you could potentially improve and actually add quality and difference to what you do or what you present as an individual or a personal brand? Ultimately, we all want to be bigger, better, and improve. Can you add in those 1% incremental compound changes that on a daily basis don't make too much of a difference, but actually over a 6-month or 12-month basis create a huge difference? Have you really thought about that? Have you come into this year ready to go? Or are you sat there feeling a little bit deflated? You can't quite find the momentum yet. You're seeing other people around you that are doing really well, and you're struggling to get yourself some focus or push yourself to do that or make that first call. You won't be on your own. I'm having conversations at the moment with a number of people where they feel like they're in that position. And quite often it's just purely because they don't know where they should be or what they should be striving for to get to that end goal. So I hope that's been useful. If you have questions, please reach out. Please come back to me and have a chat. We've got lots of things planned for this year, lots of exciting news and things that are booked in. There's going to be some announcements over the next couple of weeks from me in terms of new partners going into 2022, and it's really exciting. So I hope many of you will stay for the journey and that you'll continue to support and listen to this podcast. If you have any guests, any people that you feel you want to listen to and hear from, and you think they'll be a good addition to the podcast, then please reach out. Please send me information. Please get them to get in touch. I look forward to spending 2022 with all of you. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I will speak to you all soon.